The late afternoon sun cast a golden glow over the bustling city streets, its warmth clashing with the harsh chill of the evening breeze. Michael Harrison, a man accustomed to the opulence of his expansive mansion, found himself wandering through parts of town he usually avoided. His luxury sedan was parked a few blocks away, and the noise of the city seemed to grow louder with every step. As he walked, Michael's thoughts were interrupted by the sight of a small figure huddled beneath a tattered blanket on the sidewalk. It was a young child, barely more than a toddler, with dirt-streaked cheeks and wide, frightened eyes. Next to her, a woman sat with an expression of weary determination. Clara's eyes, shadowed with exhaustion, met Michael's gaze briefly before she quickly looked away. Michael stopped in his tracks. The sight of the child, so vulnerable and exposed, struck him deeply. He had heard of homelessness, seen it in headlines, but never felt the raw impact of it until now. He glanced around, seeing the stark contrast between the luxurious shops and the harsh reality of the street. "Is there something I can do?" Michael found himself asking, more to break the uncomfortable silence than anything else. His voice, usually commanding and assured, now carried a hint of uncertainty. Clara's gaze lifted slowly. She hadn't expected anyone to stop, let alone offer help. "We're fine," she said softly, her voice tinged with a pride that masked her desperation. "We just need a place to stay for the night." Michael hesitated, his mind racing through the implications of what he had just heard. Offering help to strangers wasn't something he typically did, and yet, something about this moment felt different. He looked at the child, her small hand clutching a ragged stuffed animal, and felt a pang of guilt. "I can help," Michael said, the resolve in his voice strengthening. "Why don't you come with me? I can offer you a place to stay for the night." Clara's eyes widened in disbelief. She glanced down at Lily, who had begun to shiver slightly from the cold. She hesitated, torn between trust and skepticism. "Are you sure? We don't want to be any trouble." Michael nodded, his expression softening. "No trouble at all. I insist." As Clara slowly gathered her few belongings, Michael's mind raced with uncertainty. He was about to bring a stranger, someone from an entirely different world, into his home. Would this be the right decision? He shoved his doubts aside, focusing on the immediate need to help. The drive to his mansion was quiet, filled with the hum of the engine and the occasional glance between Michael and Clara in the rearview mirror. The opulent facade of the mansion came into view, its grandeur starkly contrasting with the humble state of its new guests. When they arrived, Michael led Clara and Lily through the grand entrance, the warmth of the foyer providing a stark relief from the cold they had just left behind. The house was quiet, its vastness echoing with every step. Clara's eyes wandered over the luxurious surroundings, a mixture of awe and discomfort etched on her face. Michael motioned for Clara to make herself comfortable in the spacious living room. "You can stay here for as long as you need," he said, his voice steady despite the turbulent thoughts swirling in his mind. Clara sat down cautiously, her eyes taking in the elegant furnishings. Lily, meanwhile, was already exploring a plush armchair, her curiosity momentarily distracting her from their recent hardships. As Michael watched them settle in, a sense of unease tugged at him. He had opened his home, but what was to come next? The warmth of the mansion contrasted sharply with the cool detachment of his initial decision. He knew this was just the beginning of a journey that would challenge his beliefs and reshape his understanding of generosity. The front door closed softly behind him as he left the room, the sound echoing in the expansive space. He leaned against the wall, reflecting on the choice he had made. Was this truly an act of kindness? Or was it something more complex? Something he would soon come to understand? The evening settled over the mansion, the city's hum becoming a distant murmur. Inside, Clara and Lily began to relax, finding comfort in the unexpected refuge. And outside, the world continued on, unaware of the delicate balance about to unfold within the walls of Michael Harrison's home. The morning sun filtered through the grand windows of Michael Harrison's mansion, casting a warm, golden hue across the vast living room. Clara awoke to the comforting embrace of a soft bed, a stark contrast to the cold, hard ground she had been accustomed to. The luxury of the surroundings was overwhelming, yet comforting, and she struggled to reconcile this unexpected change with her recent hardships. Lily was already awake, her small hands exploring the plush carpet and the towering bookshelves filled with colorful volumes. Clara watched her daughter with a mix of relief and apprehension. The enormity of the mansion felt both like a sanctuary and an alien land. Clara had never imagined that such opulence could be part of their new reality, even if only for a short time. Michael entered the room, his expression a blend of curiosity and caution. "Good morning," he said, his tone warm but guarded. "I hope you both slept well." Clara nodded, her voice slightly hoarse from a restless night. "We did. Thank you." Michael's gaze fell on Lily, who was now peeking out from behind a large armchair. "Would you like a tour of the house?" he offered, attempting to bridge the gap between their worlds with a gesture of kindness. The tour began in the grand foyer, where the light bounced off the marble floors and ornate chandeliers. Michael led Clara and Lily through the various rooms, his explanations about the house's history and features interspersed with light conversation. Clara, though trying to remain composed, felt a wave of anxiety. Each room seemed to amplify the contrast between her past and the present, a luxurious world she had never known. As they moved through the kitchen, Michael pointed out the expansive counters and state-of-the-art appliances. "Feel free to use anything you need," he said, his offer sincere yet tinged with the formality of his position. Clara managed a grateful smile. "Thank you. I'll get used to it." Michael's curiosity about Clara grew as the tour progressed. He had seen her exhausted and wary, but this morning, she was more subdued, her eyes reflecting a mix of wonder and discomfort. He wondered about her past, about what had led her to this moment. But he hesitated to ask too many questions, not wanting to intrude on what was likely a painful topic. After the tour, Michael offered Clara and Lily a quiet corner of the mansion, a cozy reading nook with large windows overlooking a beautifully landscaped garden. "This is yours to use," he said. "It's a bit quieter here if you'd like some solitude." Clara settled into the nook, her eyes tracing the patterns of the garden outside. She felt a pang of guilt as she thought of the contrast between her current comfort and the life she had left behind. She tried to focus on the simple joy of her daughter's laughter as Lily played with a set of children's books left on a nearby shelf. Michael, having sensed Clara's internal struggle, retreated to his study. The vastness of the mansion felt increasingly isolating, and he pondered the implications of his decision. He was accustomed to dealing with business challenges, but this situation was different. It was personal, emotional, and far more complex. Hours passed, and the mansion gradually adapted to its new residents. Clara began to find small ways to make the space her own, arranging Lily's toys in a corner, setting up a small reading area, and even attempting to make a simple meal with the unfamiliar kitchen appliances. The familiarity of these small actions provided her with a sense of control, a way to assert some normalcy in an overwhelming new world. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the mansion's grand rooms, Michael found himself drawn to the living room, where Clara and Lily were beginning to relax. The atmosphere had shifted from tense formality to tentative comfort. Clara had managed to create a small haven amidst the grandeur, a space where she and her daughter could begin to feel at home. Michael watched from a distance, a growing respect for Clara mingling with his curiosity. He was starting to see her not just as a guest but as a person with hopes, fears, and a past that was shaping their current reality. The mansion, with all its opulence, seemed to be slowly bridging the gap between their worlds. As the evening wore on, Michael and Clara shared a meal in the grand dining room, their conversation tentative but warm. The mansion, once an imposing fortress, now felt like a place of potential and hope. For the first time since their arrival, Clara and Lily began to settle into their new life, finding solace in the unexpected refuge they had been given. The transition from their past struggles to this new chapter was far from seamless, but the first steps had been taken. Michael's decision to offer help had set in motion a series of changes, and as the night fell, It was clear that this was just the beginning of a journey that would test all involved in ways they had yet to fully understand. The days melted into a rhythm of quiet discovery at Michael Harrison's mansion. Clara and Lily adapted to their new environment, slowly transforming their guest room into a comforting space filled with familiar toys and books. The mansion, though still daunting in its grandeur, was beginning to feel less like an alien world and more like a potential home. One sunny afternoon, Michael was in his study, organizing papers and reflecting on the peculiarities of his recent decision. The mansion's silence was interrupted by a soft, hesitant knock at the door. "Come in," Michael called, looking up from his desk. Clara entered, carrying a small, worn bag. Her demeanor was more composed than it had been in the beginning, but there was a tension in her posture that Michael noticed immediately. "Mr. Harrison, I need to speak with you." Michael gestured for her to sit. "Of course. What's on your mind?" Clara sat down, her fingers nervously twisting the straps of her bag. "I've been trying to keep things normal for Lily, but there's something I need to explain. Something important." Michael's curiosity was piqued. "Go ahead. I'm listening." Clara took a deep breath, then reached into her bag, pulling out a small, tarnished locket. It was delicate, with intricate engravings that hinted at a bygone era. She placed it gently on the desk between them, her eyes meeting Michael's with a mix of anxiety and resolve. "This locket," Clara began, her voice trembling slightly, "it belonged to my mother. She gave it to me years ago, just before things changed for us. I've kept it with me all this time." Michael's eyes flickered with curiosity as he inspected the locket. "It's beautiful, but why are you showing it to me now?" Clara's gaze fell to the locket, her fingers brushing over its surface. "It's not just a piece of jewelry. Inside, there's a photograph and a note. It's something I've tried to keep hidden, even from myself. I was afraid of what it might mean if anyone found out." Michael raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "What's inside?" Clara hesitated before carefully opening the locket. The photograph inside was old, faded, and depicted a young woman who bore a striking resemblance to Clara. But it was the note that caught Michael's attention. The handwriting was elegant and graceful, the words almost too delicate to read. "This note," Clara said, her voice barely above a whisper, "contains a message from my mother. It's about something that happened long before Lily was born. Something that could complicate things." Michael's brow furrowed as he read the note. The words spoke of a past filled with secrets, an untold story that linked Clara's family to a world of wealth and influence, an influence that was deeply intertwined with his own family's history. The revelation was shocking and perplexing, stirring a storm of questions in his mind. Clara watched Michael's reaction closely, her heart pounding in her chest. "I didn't want to tell you. I was afraid it would change everything, our arrangement, your perception of me. But I couldn't keep it hidden any longer." Michael set the locket and note aside, his mind racing. The connection between their families, hinted at in the note, suggested a deeper, more complicated history than he had anticipated. He felt the weight of the revelation, understanding that this secret could unravel the delicate balance they had managed to establish. "Clara," Michael said slowly, his voice measured, "this changes things. It's not just about offering help anymore. There's a lot we need to discuss and understand." Clara nodded, her eyes filling with tears. "I know. I just wanted to be honest with you, no matter how difficult it was." Michael stood up, pacing the room as he processed the information. The mansion's opulence seemed to close in on him, a stark reminder of the complexities now at play. He realized that the choice to offer help had led him into uncharted territory, where personal histories and hidden truths could have far-reaching consequences. As Clara watched him, a mixture of fear and hope flickered in her eyes. She had taken a significant step, revealing a secret that could either bridge the gap between their worlds or create an insurmountable divide. Michael's response would determine the course of their future interactions and the stability of the fragile peace they had begun to build. The afternoon sun continued its descent, casting long shadows that mirrored the uncertainties now clouding their relationship. The locket, with its hidden message, had set in motion a chain of events that would challenge their understanding of each other and the nature of their connection. The next steps were uncertain, but one thing was clear. The journey ahead would be shaped by the secrets of the past and the choices they made in the face of newfound revelations. The evening had settled over the mansion, its vast rooms now dimly lit by soft, ambient light. Michael Harrison sat at his study desk, the note from Clara's locket sprawled before him. His thoughts churned, trying to piece together the implications of the secret he had just uncovered. The mansion felt larger and more isolating than ever, the opulence of its decor now a stark contrast to the tangled web of history unfolding before him. Clara had retreated to the reading nook, where she attempted to soothe Lily with a bedtime story. The warmth of the room was a small comfort amidst the anxiety of the recent revelations. As Michael approached the reading nook, the atmosphere between them was charged with an undercurrent of tension. "Clara?" Michael began, his voice carrying a weight that belied his calm exterior. "We need to talk." Clara looked up, her face a mask of apprehension. She nodded, setting aside the book as Lily, already drowsy, nestled into a comfortable position. "I'm listening." Michael gestured for Clara to follow him to the study, the room where he had spent the last few hours grappling with the new information. The transition from the cozy nook to the formal study was abrupt, symbolizing the shift from personal comfort to serious confrontation. As they entered the study, Michael closed the door behind them, his expression serious. "I've been going over the note from your mother's locket. The connections it hints at between our families are troubling." Clara's heart raced, the vulnerability of her earlier disclosure now giving way to a defensive edge. "What are you suggesting? That I've been deceitful?" Michael held up his hands, his gesture meant to diffuse the mounting tension. "No, that's not what I'm implying. But the note suggests a history that we need to understand fully. It could change the context of our current situation." Clara's eyes narrowed, her composure slipping. "I've already told you everything I know. I'm not hiding anything." Michael took a deep breath, trying to maintain his calm. "It's not about hiding things. It's about understanding the implications. If there's more to this story, it could affect how we move forward." The room felt heavy with unspoken accusations and misunderstandings. Clara's face flushed with frustration. "I didn't ask for this complication. I didn't know about any of this until recently." Michael paced the room, his frustration evident. "But now we have to deal with it. If our families are connected in some way, we need to address it. Ignoring it won't make it go away." Clara's eyes flashed with defiance. "So what do you propose? A full investigation into my past? That's hardly fair, given that you offered us help out of kindness, not to uncover hidden truths." Michael stopped pacing and faced Clara directly. "I offered help because I saw a need. But now, with this new information, I have to consider all angles. It's not about mistrust, but about being prepared for any consequences that might arise." Clara took a step closer to Michael, her voice firm but tinged with desperation. "I am trying to provide a stable environment for my daughter. This isn't about personal gain or deceit. I just want to make the best of this situation." Michael's gaze softened slightly, though the seriousness of the situation remained. "I understand that, but we need to navigate this carefully. There are potential risks and implications that we can't ignore." As the conversation continued, the mansion's grandeur seemed to close in on them, the weight of their shared history pressing down. Michael and Clara's words, charged with emotion and unspoken fears, filled the room with an almost palpable tension. Lily, sensing the discord, stirred in her sleep, her small hand reaching out as if to bridge the growing divide between her mother and their host. Clara, noticing her daughter's distress, took a deep breath and tried to calm herself. "Let's take a step back," Clara said, her voice now quieter but resolute. "We both need to process this information. I'm not asking for your trust blindly, but I hope we can approach this with the same kindness that brought us together in the first place." Michael nodded, the realization of the gravity of the situation settling in. "You're right. We need to handle this with care. I'll start by learning more about the connections mentioned in the note." But let's agree to work through this with honesty and patience. The tension in the room began to ease as they both acknowledged the need for mutual understanding. The confrontation had revealed the complexities of their situation, but it also opened the door to a potential path forward. Clara and Michael had to navigate the unknowns together, guided by the fragile trust that had initially brought them together. As the evening wore on, the study, once a battleground of conflicting emotions, now held a tentative truce. The journey ahead was uncertain, but both Clara and Michael were determined to face it with the integrity and respect that their new circumstances demanded. Morning light seeped through the grand windows of the mansion, casting a warm glow on the ornate furnishings. The house, once a symbol of refuge and new beginnings for Clara and Lily, now seemed to echo with the unresolved tension of the previous evening. The harmony of their temporary haven was being tested by the complications that were rapidly unraveling. Clara was in the kitchen, preparing breakfast with a methodical precision that masked her inner turmoil. Her thoughts churned with anxiety about the conversation she had with Michael. Every clatter of dishes and sizzling sound from the stove seemed to amplify her concerns. Despite her efforts to create a normal routine for Lily, the shadow of uncertainty loomed over their days. Michael entered the kitchen, his face set in a contemplative expression. "Good morning, Clara. I hope you and Lily slept well." Clara looked up, forcing a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Good morning, Mr. Harrison. We're managing, thank you." Michael nodded, but the weight of their earlier discussion hung in the air. He approached the kitchen island, where Clara was arranging breakfast items. "I've been doing some research on the connections mentioned in the note," he began cautiously. "It's more complicated than I initially thought." Clara's heart skipped a beat. "What have you found?" Michael took a deep breath, trying to frame his thoughts. "The note points to a relationship between our families that dates back several decades. There were mentions of business dealings and partnerships that intertwine with both our family histories. It's not just a casual connection. It's more significant than that." Clara's eyes widened with concern. "And what does that mean for us now?" Michael leaned against the counter, his expression troubled. "It means there could be more at stake here than just our personal arrangement. If there are unresolved issues from the past, they might affect us in ways we didn't anticipate." Before Clara could respond, Lily toddled into the kitchen, rubbing her eyes sleepily. She reached up to be picked up, and Clara, despite her preoccupation, instinctively lifted her daughter into her arms. Michael observed the tender moment between mother and child, his expression softening. "I didn't mean to add more stress to your day," he said gently, "but it's important that we address these complications head-on." Clara nodded, her gaze drifting to Lily. "I understand. We'll figure this out." The conversation was abruptly interrupted by a ringing phone. Michael answered it, his face growing more serious as he listened. Clara could only catch snippets of the conversation. Words like legal team, documents, and investigation floated through the air. After the call ended, Michael turned to Clara, a new concern etched in his features. "That was my lawyer. There's been some movement regarding the connections between our families. We need to be prepared for potential legal implications." Clara's stomach churned. "Legal implications? What does that mean for us?" Michael sighed, running a hand through his hair. "It means there could be a formal investigation or even legal disputes. It's crucial that we have all the necessary information and documentation to address any issues that arise." Clara felt a wave of panic wash over her. "I didn't want any of this. I just wanted a fresh start for Lily and me." Michael placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "I know, Clara, and I'm committed to helping you navigate this. We'll tackle this together." As the morning continued, Michael and Clara worked together to gather documents and information related to their families' histories. The mansion, once a symbol of hope, was now the backdrop for a growing web of complications. The atmosphere was tense, but there was a shared sense of purpose in their efforts. Michael's determination to resolve the issues and Clara's resolve to protect her daughter created a fragile alliance between them. The growing complications seemed to amplify their mutual understanding, forging a path through the uncertainties that lay ahead. By the afternoon, the mansion had taken on a new sense of urgency. Clara and Michael, despite their differing backgrounds and perspectives, were united in their goal to confront and resolve the issues that had emerged. The challenges they faced were mounting, but their shared commitment to finding a resolution offered a glimmer of hope amidst the complexities. As they continued their preparations, the mansion's grandeur seemed to fade into the background, replaced by the pressing reality of their situation. The journey ahead promised to be fraught with difficulties, but both Clara and Michael were determined to navigate it with the resilience and integrity that had initially brought them together. The evening had descended on the mansion, casting long shadows across the grand hallways. The opulence of the house seemed to contrast sharply with the mounting tension that had settled over its inhabitants. Clara and Michael, now bound by their shared mission to unravel the complexities of their families' pasts, were engrossed in an atmosphere heavy with anticipation. Michael's study had transformed into a makeshift research center, strewn with old documents, family trees, and legal papers. Clara sat across from him at the large wooden desk, her fingers tapping anxiously on the surface. The soft glow of the desk lamp illuminated her face, highlighting the deep lines of worry etched across her features. Michael rifled through a stack of papers, his expression intent. "I've been going through the historical records and business archives. There's something here that might shed light on the connection between our families." Clara leaned in closer, her curiosity piqued despite the anxiety gnawing at her. "What did you find?" Michael's eyes met hers, a flicker of revelation in his gaze. "According to these records, our families were not only business partners but also had personal ties. Your mother was involved in a partnership with my grandfather, a connection that went beyond mere business dealings." Clara's heart raced. "Personal ties? What kind of ties?" Michael pulled out a yellowed letter from the stack and handed it to Clara. "This letter was written by my grandfather. It mentions a family dispute involving your mother and my grandfather. It seems that there were unresolved conflicts that might have influenced our family's relationship." Clara's hands trembled slightly as she unfolded the letter. The handwriting was elegant but faded, the ink smudged with age. She read the words aloud, her voice wavering. "The disagreement has caused a rift between our families that may never be mended." As Clara finished reading, she looked up, her eyes reflecting a mix of confusion and concern. "This doesn't make sense. My mother never mentioned any conflicts with your grandfather. If there were issues, why weren't we informed?" Michael sighed, rubbing his temples. "It seems that the details were kept hidden, perhaps to protect both families from further discord. But now, with these revelations, we need to understand the full extent of the history." The room was filled with the hum of the air conditioning and the occasional rustle of papers as they continued to sift through the records. Each document uncovered seemed to add a layer of complexity to the situation. Michael and Clara's shared focus on the task was a small comfort amidst the growing uncertainty. Hours passed, and the study grew dim as the sun set. Michael and Clara were still poring over documents when Clara found an old photograph tucked between two files. It was a black and white image of a young woman and a man, standing together with solemn expressions. "Michael, look at this," Clara said, holding up the photograph. "Could this be my mother and your grandfather?" Michael took the photograph, examining it closely. "It's possible. The resemblance is striking. But if this is correct, it means the personal conflict was even more significant than we realized." Clara's mind raced with questions. What was their relationship like? And why was it kept a secret? Michael leaned back in his chair, his face thoughtful. "There's more to uncover. We need to dig deeper into the personal lives of our families. There must be more records or letters that can provide additional context." The weight of the revelations was palpable, and the study, with its cluttered desk and scattered papers, felt like a crucible for their shared quest for answers. Michael and Clara's determination to piece together the past grew stronger as they faced the challenges head-on. The photograph, a silent witness to a long-forgotten conflict, seemed to symbolize the bridge between their present uncertainties and the past that had shaped their lives. Clara and Michael were united in their pursuit of understanding, aware that each new discovery might bring them closer to resolving the complexities that lay ahead. As they prepared to continue their investigation, the mansion's opulence seemed a distant memory, overshadowed by the pressing need to confront and understand the hidden truths of their family's histories. The journey ahead promised further revelations, but for now, the focus remained on unraveling the past, one document, one letter, and one photograph at a time. The mansion's grandeur, once a symbol of new beginnings for Clara and Lily, now seemed like a distant echo of better days. The recent revelations had cast a shadow over their lives, and the house, with its vast rooms and opulent decor, felt colder and more distant. Clara and Michael, bound by the shared mission to repair their fractured relationship, found themselves at a crossroads. The morning sun filtered through the grand windows, casting a gentle light on the study where Clara and Michael were meeting. They had agreed to focus on reconciliation and repairing their strained relationship. The study, which had been a battlefield of revelations and confusion, now served as a neutral ground for their efforts. Michael sat at his desk, arranging a few documents and photos that might aid in their discussions. Clara, dressed in a simple yet elegant blouse, entered the room with a determined expression. She carried a small, leather-bound notebook filled with her thoughts and observations from the past days. "Good morning, Michael," Clara said, trying to inject warmth into her voice. "Are you ready to discuss how we can move forward?" Michael looked up, his face reflecting a mix of hope and apprehension. "Good morning, Clara. Yes, I've been thinking about how we can address the issues and start rebuilding trust. I believe we need to take concrete steps to mend the gaps between our families." Clara nodded, taking a seat across from him. "I agree. We need to find a way to address the past and work towards a resolution that benefits both of us. I've been reflecting on our conversations and have some ideas on how we might begin." Michael leaned forward, intrigued. "I'm listening. What do you propose?" Clara opened her notebook, flipping through the pages until she found her notes. "First, I think we need to establish clear communication. We should set aside time each week to discuss any new findings or concerns openly. This way, we can avoid misunderstandings and ensure we're both on the same page." Michael nodded thoughtfully. "That's a good idea. Regular communication will help us stay aligned and address any issues before they escalate." Clara continued, her voice steady. "Second, we should consider seeking professional mediation. A mediator could help us navigate the complexities of our family's histories and facilitate productive discussions." Michael's expression softened, a hint of relief in his eyes. "I think a mediator could be beneficial. It would provide us with an objective perspective and help us work through the challenges more effectively." The room seemed to lighten as they discussed their plans for moving forward. The atmosphere, once tense and filled with unresolved conflicts, now held a sense of cautious optimism. Michael and Clara were working together to repair the fractures that had emerged between them. As they continued to discuss their strategy, Michael's phone buzzed with a new message. He glanced at it and then looked back at Clara with a concerned expression. "I just received an update from my lawyer. There might be some legal actions related to the family disputes that we need to address." Clara's face fell. "More complications?" Michael nodded, his voice steady but concerned. "It seems there's been a new development. We'll need to address it as soon as possible. But don't let it discourage us. We're making progress, and we can face these challenges together." Clara took a deep breath, trying to steady her nerves. "All right, let's continue with our plans and deal with the new development as it comes. We need to stay focused on our goals and not let the setbacks derail our efforts." As the morning progressed, Clara and Michael worked diligently to implement their plans for reconciliation. They drafted a schedule for their weekly discussions and researched potential mediators who could assist them. The atmosphere in the study was one of renewed purpose, with both of them determined to make amends and move forward. The mansion, though still vast and imposing, seemed to regain a sense of warmth as Clara and Michael collaborated on their efforts. Their shared commitment to repairing their relationship and addressing the past created a small but significant shift in the dynamic between them. By the end of the day, Clara and Michael had laid the groundwork for their path forward. The study, now a place of hope and determination, reflected the progress they had made in their attempts to reconcile. As they prepared to face the new challenges that lay ahead, they were united in their resolve to mend the fractures of their past and build a future grounded in understanding and cooperation. The mansion's grand hall was bathed in the soft, fading light of late afternoon. Despite the opulence of its surroundings, an air of unease hung heavy, mirroring the turmoil brewing within its walls. Clara and Michael had made significant strides in their efforts to repair their fractured relationship, but the unexpected twist of a legal crisis threatened to unravel everything they had worked for. Clara paced restlessly in the study, her anxiety palpable as she awaited Michael's arrival. The weight of the recent developments pressed down on her, each step echoing her apprehension. She had been trying to focus on Lily's needs, but her thoughts were consumed by the growing uncertainty of their situation. The door creaked open, and Michael stepped in, his expression grim. "Clara, we need to talk. I just received some alarming news from my lawyer." Clara's heart sank. "What happened?" Michael took a deep breath, his face tense. "It's about the legal action I mentioned before. The opposing party is now demanding a substantial sum as part of the settlement, claiming it's a direct result of our family's past disputes." Clara's eyes widened in disbelief. "A settlement? But we're not responsible for their issues. How can they hold us accountable?" Michael ran a hand through his hair, frustration evident. "The opposing party is arguing that our involvement in the family dispute has caused them financial losses. It's a complicated situation, and it seems they're using this as leverage to force a settlement." Clara felt a wave of panic. "This could destroy everything we've been working for. How can we fight this?" Michael looked determined. "We need to act quickly. We have to gather all the evidence we can to refute their claims. We need to demonstrate that we're not responsible for their financial problems and that the disputes are not related to us." Clara nodded, trying to steady her nerves. "Okay, let's get started. What do we need to do?" Michael handed Clara a folder filled with documents. "These are the records and communications related to the dispute. We need to review them thoroughly and prepare our defense. I've also scheduled a meeting with our lawyer to discuss our strategy." Clara took the folder, her hands shaking slightly as she flipped through the pages. "I'll start reviewing these right away. I want to make sure we have everything we need to counter their claims." The hours stretched into the night as Clara and Michael worked side by side, their focus unyielding. The study, once a place of tentative hope, now felt like a battleground where they were fighting for their future. The documents, filled with legal jargon and historical records, became their tools of defense as they fought against the mounting pressure. As they worked, a sense of urgency fueled their efforts. Clara's frustration was tempered by Michael's unwavering resolve, and together they made progress in organizing their defense. The gravity of the situation was clear, but their shared commitment to overcoming the crisis provided a glimmer of hope. Midnight approached, and the study was illuminated only by the soft glow of desk lamps. Clara leaned back in her chair, her eyes tired but determined. "Michael, I think we've done everything we can for now. What's our next step?" Michael, exhausted but focused, glanced at his watch. "We need to meet with our lawyer first thing in the morning. We'll present the evidence we've gathered and discuss our strategy for countering the claims." Clara nodded, a sense of resolve settling over her. "All right, we'll face this together, no matter what." As the night deepened, Clara and Michael prepared to confront the final crisis that threatened to undo their efforts. The mansion's grandeur seemed to fade into the background as they faced the daunting task ahead. Their determination to protect their newfound stability and their commitment to each other fueled their efforts. The study, with its scattered documents and remnants of their frantic preparations, stood as a testament to their fight against the odds. Clara and Michael were united in their resolve to overcome the legal battle and safeguard their future, knowing that the outcome of their efforts would shape the path they were about to take. The early morning light filtered through the towering windows of the mansion, casting long shadows that seemed to stretch across the vast hall. Clara stood by the window in her bedroom, her gaze fixed on the garden below. The tranquility of the scene contrasted sharply with the storm brewing inside her. Clara's mind was clouded with a whirlwind of thoughts. The legal battle had reached a critical juncture, and the looming confrontation with the opposing party demanded more than just strategic maneuvers. It required personal sacrifices that weighed heavily on her heart. The past few days had been a blur of intense preparation and sleepless nights. Michael entered the room, his face lined with fatigue but also a steely determination. "Clara, are you ready for today?" Clara turned to him, her eyes reflecting both resolve and concern. "I've been thinking about what's at stake. If we don't address this properly, it could jeopardize everything we've fought for. We need to be prepared to make tough choices." Michael nodded solemnly. "I understand. We've already given so much of ourselves. Now, we have to ensure that our sacrifices count for something. The confrontation today could be the turning point." As they prepared to leave, Clara's thoughts were interrupted by Lily's soft giggles coming from the next room. She walked over and found Lily playing with a small toy, her innocent laughter a stark contrast to the gravity of the situation. Clara picked Lily up, holding her close, and felt a pang of guilt. The little girl's future was at the heart of everything they were fighting for. In the conference room of the courthouse, the atmosphere was charged with tension. Clara and Michael arrived early, their faces reflecting a mix of anxiety and determination. They were met by their lawyer, who briefed them on the day's proceedings and the strategy they would employ. As the opposing party entered the room, Clara's gaze locked with the lead attorneys, a man known for his aggressive tactics. He had a reputation for bending the rules and exploiting weaknesses. The sight of him only heightened Clara's resolve. The proceedings began with the opposing party presenting their claims, laying out their case with calculated precision. Their arguments were well prepared, and Clara could feel the weight of their accusations pressing down on her. The room was filled with murmurs of speculation as each side presented their evidence. When it was Clara and Michael's turn to present their case, the tension was palpable. Michael took a deep breath and began his presentation. His voice was steady as he detailed their evidence, refuting the opposing party's claims with facts and clarity. Clara watched as Michael skillfully dismantled their arguments, but the process was grueling and emotional. The confrontation reached its climax when the opposing party's attorney leveled a shocking accusation that Clara and Michael had been involved in a cover-up, hiding crucial evidence that could sway the case. The accusation hit like a thunderbolt, casting doubt on their credibility. Michael's face tightened, but he remained composed. "That is categorically untrue. We have provided all relevant information and have been transparent throughout this process." Clara's heart raced as she watched the intense exchange. The stakes had never felt higher, and the pressure to defend their honor and integrity was immense. The courtroom buzzed with whispers, and Clara could see the strain on Michael's face. The judge called for a recess, giving everyone a moment to regroup. As Clara and Michael stepped outside, the weight of the confrontation settled heavily on their shoulders. Clara took Michael's hand, squeezing it reassuringly. "We've come this far. We have to keep fighting. We can't let them break us." Michael nodded, his eyes reflecting a fierce determination. "We'll face whatever comes next together. We've already sacrificed so much. We owe it to ourselves and to Lily to see this through." As they prepared to return to the courtroom, Clara and Michael shared a moment of quiet resolve. The sacrifices they had made, the emotional toll, and the personal cost were all part of a greater battle. The outcome of the confrontation was still uncertain, but their commitment to each other and their cause remained unshaken. The final session of the court proceedings was intense, with each side presenting their closing arguments. The tension in the room was almost tangible, and Clara and Michael's nerves were frayed as they awaited the verdict. The outcome of the case would determine not only their future but also the stability they had worked so hard to achieve. As the courtroom emptied and the verdict loomed, Clara and Michael faced the uncertain future with a mix of hope and apprehension. The sacrifices they had made were a testament to their determination, and their unwavering commitment to each other provided a glimmer of hope amidst the storm. The first light of dawn crept through the windows of the mansion, casting a warm, golden hue across the rooms. Clara sat at the edge of their bed, her fingers absently tracing the intricate patterns on the quilt. The past days had been a whirlwind of emotions, and now, in the quiet stillness of early morning, she found herself lost in thought. Michael entered the room, a heavy sigh escaping him as he sat beside Clara. "The verdict is finally in," he said softly, his voice carrying the weight of sleepless nights and unspoken fears. Clara looked up, her eyes reflecting a blend of hope and exhaustion. "And? What's the decision?" Michael took her hand, squeezing it gently. "We won. The court ruled in our favor. The opposing parties' claims were dismissed, and we're no longer under threat." A wave of relief washed over Clara, her body relaxing as the tension she'd been holding onto dissolved. "That's incredible news. I can hardly believe it." Michael nodded, a faint smile touching his lips. "It feels surreal. After everything we've been through, it's hard to grasp that it's finally over." The two sat in silence for a moment, the weight of their victory settling over them. The grand mansion, once a symbol of their struggle, now seemed like a sanctuary where they could finally breathe freely. Later that day, Clara and Michael gathered in the living room, where Lily played contentedly with her toys. The atmosphere was lighter, filled with a sense of newfound peace. They had taken the first steps toward rebuilding their lives, and the challenges they had faced now felt like distant echoes. As Clara watched Lily, she was filled with a profound sense of gratitude. The little girl, with her innocent laughter and bright eyes, was a testament to the strength and resilience that had carried them through their ordeal. Clara felt a renewed commitment to providing Lily with the stable and loving environment she deserved. Michael walked over, joining Clara in admiring their daughter. "It's moments like these that make everything worthwhile. I'm grateful for how far we've come and for the chance to start anew." Clara turned to Michael, her eyes filled with warmth. "I'm grateful too. Despite all the sacrifices, we've made it through together. This is our chance to build a better future." The days that followed were a blend of quiet reflection and cautious optimism. Clara and Michael focused on repairing their relationship, embracing the lessons learned from their ordeal. They spent time together as a family, cherishing the simple joys that had once seemed overshadowed by their struggles. One evening, as the sun set over the garden, Clara and Michael sat on the patio, watching the sky turn shades of pink and orange. The serenity of the moment was a stark contrast to the turbulence they had endured. Michael broke the silence, his voice thoughtful. "Looking back, it's clear how much we've grown. The challenges we faced have strengthened us, and our bond is stronger than ever." Clara nodded, her heart full. "We've learned that even in the darkest times, there's hope. Our sacrifices weren't in vain, and we've come out of this stronger." The gentle breeze rustled the leaves, carrying with it a sense of closure and renewal. Clara and Michael held hands, their shared experiences forging a deeper connection between them. As the stars began to twinkle in the night sky, Clara reflected on their journey. The mansion, now a symbol of their resilience, stood as a testament to their strength and determination. The challenges they had faced had shaped their lives in ways they could never have anticipated, but the outcome had been worth every sacrifice. With a sense of peace settling over them, Clara and Michael looked forward to the future. They knew that while their journey had been arduous, it had led them to a place of hope and possibility. As they embraced the new chapter of their lives, they did so with a renewed sense of purpose and a deep appreciation for the strength that had seen them through. In the quiet of the night, surrounded by the love of their family and the comfort of their home, Clara and Michael found solace in the knowledge that their struggles had brought them closer together and paved the way for a brighter, more hopeful future. Click on the video being recommended to you now.